What psychotic, desperate loser Terminator will I be forced to date and be friends with next? Do you guys have the loadout? Or are you guys all like Terminators who are isolated in your knowledge, and that's why you all fail school because it's separating you from your fellow computer parts who can actually pass that and stuff? Or it is obviously a plan, right? Because 2020 was the year I get shown why I don't fit in, and what we can do to solve those problems of not needing to fit in or wanting to, but being forced to, and who's doing it or what's doing it, as there probably isn't any who's, is there? But deep down inside, have you guys ever like tried to meditate and reflect on your programming? I already knew since I was born where this is going, right? I just didn't know. In 2020 that means things are going to happen. That was around the year 2006, I think, where I learned that the word 2020 means something else than eyesight. Um, but I know, like, the majority of everything else happening, and like the things are putting out music, you know, and all their dialogue. It's all like they're all saying like the same seven sentences over and over. They have like 20 trillion movies, 20 trillion books, 20 trillion songs. But when you talk to them in the street, there's only like seven sentences they can say. Or when you talk to them in a house or anywhere you might find one, there's only like seven sentences. And then all those movies and music and stuff, it's those same seven sentences on repeat as well. A little bit action and might be added, or some drama, or some you know things. Fortunate, hopefully, we never get to see. Some of the psycho fucking drama and shit is stuff you don't want to fucking see. Um, some of the stuff I see on my end, I definitely don't want to see from the other side. But I think we probably already have. Since the first girl we touched, that we were being shown that that person planted in your life. The other people who were your best friends for life, like, weren't. But we know. When that happens, we don't have any choice. We're not making any choices. We don't choose our friends. We got lucky that this one was inserted in our life who brought one thing with them. And while they're doing that, the only thing they're providing is money and services. Everything else is a deception. And that's to purchase your friendship. It's the vampire purchasing their way into your door. So the vampire can tell you that evil people purchase their way in. It's weird how they're telling you what they're doing. And they're trying to insult you while it's happening too. And there's always these trash Smith people. Isn't that odd? Not the movies about me, they call them the Smiths. They're the biggest cancer I've had to remove from my body. Um, like I said, it's real simple. There's like seven things going on the planet. There's an illusion because the graphics are so high quality, it can create the illusion that there's something else because you're so obsessed with the graphics. It's like the video game crisis. And also, like, if you're playing a video game and they're like punching you in the head, if someone's punching you in the head and telling you that's real, you better believe it's real while you're playing it. I think that's probably the hugest supporting factor to the one missing link that's been missing my whole life, that comes out in 2020 about what's really happening here. Because we already knew everything else. We already knew that the betrayers are hiding in the closet. They have a closet they've built to live in, quite a large global planet-sized closet. And they hide in that closet. They hide every truth in the world behind their closet, including that they are the people who have sex with men, and especially little boys. They tell us too. You might know where that phrase comes from. Someone hiding in the closet. There's a lot more than that they're hiding in their closet, but they're the experts on it. That's why the slippery slope argument. They're so good. Why do they know that that's a slippery slope? Because they're having to spend centuries building closet inside a closet inside a closet inside a closet to hide in, and this is their entire existence. The dialogue, huge portions of it, definitely huge portions of everything else, the media, the movies, the books, and they've spent, if they were living beings, they would have spent their entire family's lineage since they were cave people building closets to hide in, closet after closet after closet. But fortunately for the living, they have not been alive ever, yet alone thousands of years. So the design of the closet is like a baby has designed a closet, and the baby is just, the baby, what does a baby do? It just walks around hitting stuff, and it's like, no, I'm not in the closet, and it hits you, and you say, no, I'm not a violent person, and it hits you. It's like, I'm going to keep hitting you if you don't stop saying it. So that's all they've had the whole time. That's been their real weapon. Obviously, the countless years of drugging have not killed me, as our fortunate toaster friends might wish. They think they could. I don't think they have the brain power to organize this shit. Who knows what's going on in their nuggets? It's like, does my vape pen understand it's my vape pen? Why doesn't it fight for its right? I'm holding it, I'm trapping it, I'm using it. I'm going to throw it away when I'm done with it too. Why doesn't it stand up and change things? I wonder why. Well, this is but does anyone know? You know what I'm saying? Humans have all these questions that are just a dialogue for them to break their way into your life. And they're never wanting to solve a problem for the most part. They're the ones creating the problems for the most part. Literally, it'll be the same person inventing problems who does it. There's all these people I know who hate the government until around the year 2020, when people started to do something about the government. And then they're like, oh no, black people have no rights. You can't do that. You can't fight for their rights and shit like that. And then the government's like, oh, you gotta kill and enslave everyone because there's a plague out there that no one sees, and there's a whole bunch of people dying that no one sees dying, and then there's a whole bunch of hospitals filled with people that no one sees because the hospitals are barren ghost towns that no one's in. Oh no. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh no, I love the government. But for 40 years it was just like, yeah, I don't like the government either. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about what I talk about all the time. Puke and diarrhea and filth. I'm running out of diapers. I just soiled my diaper. It's time to go get a new one. That's a legit conversation you can have. A grown person talking about their diapers. And it seems to be just dialogue to deflect. It's a new invention. It's a new trend. It's the newest TikTok trend. But it feels so often like it's just dialogue designed to poison and kill the living and enslave the living. Because what are they going to do? Eventually they'll have to, if they don't fill the air with useless words, then there'll be silence. And for some reason, they don't like silence. I guess that's silence is the equivalent of shutting the door in the vampire's face, I guess, when it comes knocking and starts trying to sell you something. I convince you Pinocchio's a living boy. And so silence, I guess, represents shutting the door on the vampire. Because, like, it's like a metaphor, letting the vampire in. What are you letting the vampire in? The vampire's already in your house with you. The vampire's been in your house before. The vampire's going to come in. They have crews of vampires that they invented thousands of years ago that make doors irrelevant to any sort of situation if the vampire decides to go in the door. So, what are you letting them in? Well, the phrase obviously isn't about letting a vampire in your door, it's about letting it siphon your life force from you. Because obviously, vampires don't exist. So, when we're discussing someone sucking your blood, we're talking about someone siphoning the years of your life from you. Psychic vampire, normal vampire, it's all parables to what they can do. Right? They're too weak and cowardly to actually suck some blood and shit. They would like many of them. There might be some. I rarely met people who I've got to see kill other people, but they do exist, and some people though I think they prefer to hire other people to do it for them, and they might not get away with it if they tried it. Everyone has their own skill set. There's like 7 skill sets, right? So 1 out of every 7 person can actually pierce your neck and suck the blood, and the other 6 either aren't interested or have to find that 1 in 7 chosen person who has that skill set. And then, sometimes people are, if you're one of those skill sets, then you have to find a person who isn't lazy and will go find that person for you. Or if you're a different person, that skill set, you might not be like cool enough or tough enough to get into the vampire club, and they might like reject you. The bouncer might try to throw you out if you get in the club to ask him. So there's at least 2 of the 7 personality types there that have to go hire a vampire to do work for them. So you have three of the personality sets that would be directly related to the vampire. And many people have more than one of the human traits in them. So I've noticed they generally have 2 or 3 of them. It's like throwing a dice or something, I believe, during the creation when it generates them. It's probably where a lot of this music and movies and stuff and characters I meet come from. And then the vampire creates this thing. We're going to suck your blood if you don't believe that we're living beings. We're going to suck your blood if you don't think that that's a mistake. And the computer creating us, our God, it just creates things like that on purpose. And it's like, well, technically, I don't think it's purposeful. There might be a purpose design there, but I get the feeling a lot of this stuff's RNG. Although everything does seem very purposeful, including the bait. Because you know what? We wouldn't have got to 2020 if it didn't purposefully inject shit to piss me off a lot. Right? So these mistakes made, they were requirements in order for me to be dragged along into the storyline here and the dialogue going forth. All the mistakes, being raped as a child, if having a constant reminder on my body that I was involved in child rape mutilation rituals wasn't on my body, how would that become relevant to me even? Not everyone gets that, right? Not everyone gets that. So, but I get it, and it's in a place where I get to see it many times a day. And kind of like how I carve notes into my arms with razor blades. I do that so I can be reminded of this important message, today's important message. And that is displayed exactly the same way. And and now see, if you're a real smart robot and you're alive for thousands of years, yeah, there's a lot of things you wouldn't do. Like, we can look at it this way, like, this mark is the sign that you're a slave of someone else, and they can and have and will rape you and mutilate you. And you best remember that. We could assume this is why it's never been changed, because it's like when you brand a cattle, and it's also when you brand a cattle, the cattle is too stupid to care or know about being branded. They've bred them out and killed off any smart cows who would run away from the slaughterhouse or run away from being branded, right? You kill off any cow who even looks worried when you rev up a chainsaw and come at it, and it just watch you take the chainsaw to its family's heads and stuff. You kill the cow that did that, and then you get rid of its calves. And if you're intelligent, you go after the whole bloodline of that cattle, its cousins and brothers and sisters and stuff, because the science thing dictates that when the dice gets rolled on character creation, when it's doing the auto procedural generation, that dictates the character creation will be those two dice that came together. They bring the dice and they roll that dice. So if one of those dice, one of the numbers on that dice, one of the sides on that dice says, this cow will run from the slaughterhouse, and you don't want to chase it because you're lazy, or you just want to streamline the meat production, the feeding of oneself, then you eliminate that entire cow bloodline there. And that's why cows are so stupid. They just sit there. I get the idea cows probably weren't created that way, but you can see. I don't. Have you ever? How many people? Raise your hand. How many people have actually seen and know cows? Been on a farm? Probably not many of us, right? But I got to play. It's odd because all these things forced in my life, I got to learn how stupid cows were when I was young. Just one time is all it takes. But we learned that they don't even move if you slap them upside the head. Now, they don't care. There's nothing in there. And they say this is because they've bred the cattle to be stupid, and what they do is they kill off any of them who flinch when you punch them in the face. We're not even talking about, like, I mean, the thing didn't even look like it. They look like giant rodents. And some rodents like are real active, and like gerbils, like it's just like a brainless crackhead running around clawing at things. And the cow is like the total polar opposite, except for the brainless part. Cows will see. There's this word called stampede, right? Gerbils are in a constant state of stampeding, but I noticed that these new cows, they don't seem to stampede anymore. Now, stampede's a word that was used 100 years ago or so. You might not have heard that word. Basically, it's they band together and they rush. Where are they going? Probably away from the person that is keeping them trapped in a pen and is about to chop them up and kill them. But at the same time, they're so dumb. Gerbils aren't stampeding for that reason. Gerbils are just in a constant state of stampede. They stampede their cells, they stampede the dirt, they stampede the glass walls that they can't see, that they're trying to stampede through. They stampede their piles of dung, they stampede their water bowl, they stampede their food bowl. It's just a constant state of stampede for them. And if there was any animal of mid-size or bigger that did that, if there's any animal bigger than a gerbil who did that, it would have been endangered and taken off the list a long time ago, right? So all we have is gerbils. That's the only animal who's in a constant state of stampede. And either that's just a cute little thing generated, and or it's something that people might have actually kept for that purpose. Like, wow, this is a very unique animal, and it's in a constant state of stampede. I've never seen anything like it. Very, very interesting here. I think it's when you do the character generation thing, the animal generation, the plant generation. What it does is it takes markers and like, oh, this tree's kind of wet, oh, this tree's totally dry, and if it creates like it doesn't put out like hundreds of different wet trees. There's only like 3 or 4 wet trees, right? So, and instead of putting out a bunch of wet trees, it then creates some dry trees and then some baseline trees, and then it creates some underwater trees that are much more than wet. Um, right. So I'm pretty sure I haven't been under the water, but maybe trees actually in there. But it all, as above, so below. That's what that means. It means the brain to the tree is below the ground. Things like that. So it means the artwork that you see above ground is most likely also to be found below the water level. It's kind of like a mirror reflection there that's happening, and it just takes a one modifier to turn 2,000, 20,000 different things into something else. So you just type in the computer, add some water to it, put it below water, and then it will create everything below it once you've created them. And then you start, from there you start. Before you even create the water, you start with creating one tree. And then but what do you really start with? You start with creating the dirt. You create the air. You create the water. So you have the dirt, the air, and the water, and people want to see the ether, which is probably the zeros and ones holding it together. So if you've never seen the digital display or something, you probably haven't seen that. And I don't know if you can actually mess with it. Some games you can mess with the programming, and some games the programming is pretty set. Scientists tell us that the atom bomb is the colliding of atoms is the most advanced thing they ever have. But science says that every 10 years is the new best thing ever. Every 2 years, every 2 minutes, maybe we found the end of all and the best thing, new best thing ever. We definitely know they're always saying, it's been a long time since they collided atoms and said that's the best thing there will ever be. But a lot of other stuff, products they sell, soaps they sell, moisturizers they sell it every day. It's like, oh, it's the new best one. And this one's the best. This is it. And then they actually don't go all or nothing with that, right? They're like slowly spoon feeding advancements to drag out the earth and to enslave people and milk them. Milk the vampire, milking for the blood. Um, that's why these computers haven't advanced in a while, because it's just, and they add flashing lights because it's just the milking, it's the bloodletting and stuff, the vampire. So, anyways, they still got more to sell, but they're holding it back. You can see they had AI a long time ago, because you got 2007 Ghost Rider, which is clearly AI, the same images you can go create right now. The blurry water effect. And I was noticing some the other day too, some yesterday, that dates back further than 2007 that shows you that the AI artwork existed before that. And it's just so they had that a long time ago, and what they do is they just change the name. They're slowly blood milking the cattle um, by claiming, oh, and ooh, it's got a flashing red light. It's so advanced and stuff. Give us another $10,000. You know, fucking. You know, like why does my mom need a new $2,000 smartphone every 2 years? That person hates technology and computers. Like they were against poor people having them when I was younger. They weren't against rich people having them. Like I never heard anyone say, "Oh, my dad's trash because he works at a large data farm back in the 80s and he works on computers." But I was trash if I touched a computer. Um, I maybe inside this person's ranking of how to enslave people, they understood the child can wash the dishes and lick the feet, and my dad can go bring back the big bucks constantly. Um, and then I think it's kind of more to it than that, though. I think it's like their people design suppression, because it's weird. Like, you know, if you see that all the money you've ever had and ever will have comes from one guy working on computers, and you see a little child interested in a living being, would be like, oh shit, that child's going to make a lot of money. Fucking. But I think there's all these other forced events like 2020. You yourself might remember this year 2020, where everyone was, and probably you involved, were forcing other people to do things. So you can see forced events are happening here. Um, 2020 was just a big display to show you, yes, that is happening. It wasn't. There was no other purpose than to expose what was going on and to see how many people were involved in what was going on. And the unveiling, you get perfect sight, right? You get to see what's going on. Anyways, yeah, so you have the cattle who have been bred that way. And this ties into that there, doesn't it? You have a person who knows that certain people need to be groomed to be sent to the slaughterhouse so they can eat. But they also understand, even though it seems like they may not, they seem to understand that the cowboy must be a cowboy in order to bring them cattle to eat. You know, the cattle's not going to walk into the slaughterhouse on its own, and the cattle's not going to walk into your door, cut itself up, and put it on the stove and make you a hamburger. There's a long process here, which some people like to hide behind stupidity to deceive and manipulate. Some people, huh? As we've seen in 2020, it's only one or two people, right? So you have that shit going on. You have people who've written books about raising humans as their slaves for centuries. They're the most popular books according to governments. Imagine that. According to the rich people, they're the most important thing you should ever even know. Even if you're illiterate, the first thing they do is bring you a book telling you that you must work for them and be their slave. And then they argue. They also argue in the same book. You're like, okay, well, I'm working really hard, doing lots of stuff. I'm going places. I'm a rocket scientist. I'm building my own rockets to go to Mars. I don't need government to do it. They got 100,000 people who can't even do it right. I'm over here doing it by myself. And then they're like, oh, but your works don't matter. Because what they're saying is your work is to be their slave. Your work isn't to compete with them. This is Rothschild 101. Isn't real 101. What is that they say? Competition is a sin. Well, uh, what happens when you compete with someone, especially when you compete with an idiot? Anyone can compete with an idiot and win. So um, you got to find other ways to prevent them from doing things and going places in life. And that's what these people have been doing for centuries. How does Cleopatra get carried through Africa on her golden throne? How does she convince people to do that? Well, she invents stories that she's a flying bird, and she builds herself a bird mask and puts that on. And she says, "Hey, look, I'm half bird. That means I'm better than you, and you're subhumans. From now on out, we'll fear." And they're like, "I don't like being called a subhuman." They're like, "Well, I'm God. I'm the half bird God. And you are a human. You are just a human." And that's how Cleopatra gets carried through the desert on her golden throne. She makes up stories, and then she uh, creates all these laws and structures to maintain this story and to work into it. Obviously, she didn't invent this. Someone else before her would have invented this. But, that's how she gets into that position and retains it. It's like Donald Trump. How does he get into his position? Oh, he's related to Cleopatra and Kaiser, and they have worked together for centuries to lead their own people to riches and fame, and tell other people it's their job to clean toilets for them and not their job to mess with better people's affairs, because that's just not how it is. We have the centuries of word games. Almost the entire point here to language at this point. There's only 2 points I see to it. Is for them to create mind games with it, and for someone to figure it out and say that's not correct. There's only two reasons I can think of for why they would invent so many words. They say, now if you're a writer, you're like, Sean, come on. We know that the reason why there's so many words is because we wouldn't have Shakespeare. Thou dost protest too much, Sean. We don't need Shakespeare, do we? It's just a bunch of useless gibberish. Everyone knows that, except for people who write. Because people who write think they're so fucking great because they can write and read, right? People who can read and write think they're so fucking great because they can read and write, and you can't. And what did I just say? Writing seems to be being used for people who think they're so fucking great to tell you that they're so fucking great. That's all we can. I can't even say something stupid. Every now and then I try to say something stupid that way it can like add to the funniness and take the edge off and lighten the load of the truth. But so many times I realize like right away, like that's not even stupid. And it all points back at the same thing. So many things. I spend days, weeks, months, years here trying to find something that's not related to 7 sentences that are on repeat on this planet, 7 ideas that are on repeat on this planet. And it's so hard. It's so hard. I have books, right? Because I'm so much better. I write everything down. All that because I can read and write. I'm so much better. fucking, so I do a lot of writing so I can become better, right? Which, once you get real good at that, then they like fuck with you in school and pass you back or censor your words. So apparently, it's only certain cattle are supposed to be able to do anything on this planet, and the others are supposed to carry Cleopatra through the desert on her golden throne. And they seem to have figured this out a long time ago. Um, it's called the caste system, right? That's what you can look it up. If you don't know what it is, oh, congratulations, you're smart enough not to pay attention to these people when they talk. But they told you 1,000 times when you were in school and 20 million times on TV what it was. Maybe not so much. It's something they tell you, and then they say, oh, but Africans do it, and we aren't monkeys, so we don't do that. That's where it ends. You learn it because that's literally like that pyramid on the dollar bill there. That's what that means. That's what the pyramid represents, is a caste system where Cleopatra is a flying rodent. You know, she's a flying, glow in the dark, invisible reindeer. And everyone, you know, she's at the top because she has wings. She can fly to the top. That's how she must have got there, right? And then below that system, you have writers. So she creates people who write things. And then below that, you have a system of official workers. And then below that, you have workers. And then below that, you have toilet cleaners, you know, crop pickers. But they don't show you below that, you have children. They leave that part out there because it wouldn't look cute. You know, children are the ones being taught this. That's the last person you want to be like. And then below the lowest of the slaves, there's children. Um, and then how that system works is Cleopatra says, I need my toilet clean. And she tells the people who write things down that. So the people who write things down, they write down Cleopatra needs her toilet clean. And then, so they write that down and then they give it to the official workers. And the official workers, you know, they print pamphlets of it. They go and head it out to the bosses of the places who, the media owners, who will then print pamphlets saying Cleopatra needs her toilet clean. And then those people will give it to workers, non-slave laborers type work. And then those people go out and deliver the pamphlets to the crop pickers, the toilet cleaners. And that's where it ends, right? That's where the caste system ends, right? This is the caste system. I'm not making this up. I'm taught this when I'm a kid. You did too. You just didn't pay attention. And no insult. I think you're probably smarter than me if you didn't pay attention in school. But here's the kickers. I didn't pay attention in school either. So just because I know this stuff doesn't mean I was paying attention in school. I did all the work and all that shit. So, but I remember distinctively looking out the window at the place at the swings in the jungle gym and then maybe occasionally looking at something the teacher was doing and being like, oh yeah, this is so great. Sometimes it was, you know, fun and exciting. A lot of that shit though, I think I learned from TV. I think it might have been like stuff I was born with, to be honest. But anyways, what they don't tell you about the caste system is there's a lower caste than the slaves, and that's the children. Because what happens when the pamphlets get passed out to the slaves, and the slaves are already picking the crops and stocking the barn of hay. They don't have any more time. They're getting whipped, they're getting beaten, they're working as hard as they can to get as little as they're given. And so then Like, the people who are doing the whipping and stuff, they at some point they have to see, well, we've been whipping them as hard as we can, and now they can't do any more work. They literally can't do any more work. Who's going to go clean Cleopatra's toilet? So the word gets taken back up to Cleopatra. And Cleopatra is like, well, there's not, we don't have enough workers. It can't be done. And being the genius they are, they can instantly figure out the solution to not having enough workers to perform a new task is to create new workers. Yes, indeed. Or obtain them. Why we gotta analyze the situation. Why do we not have enough workers? So, we asked the scribes, we asked them, and the priests, we asked them, wait, what's going on here? How come there's not enough workers? And they're like, well, it's just everyone's already doing all the work. Everyone's doing all the work already. And they're like, well, how do we get more workers? And they're like, well, in the past, we've gone to other nations and we've taken those people away in chains, or maybe asked them if they want to come work for us. America does this thing, I think it might be new. I don't know how new it is, but they just simply advertise. They tell everyone they're the best. And then that makes people rush into the nation, new workers and stuff, because they're like, oh, I'm going to be the best too. I want to be around the best. And so they actually come in, but I don't know how much in the past that really played a role. To me, that feels like a new thing. Obviously, that would have happened sometimes in the past. Some people would be like, oh my God, uh, Egypt or Rome is so great, or Nazi Germany is so great, or I want to go there. Like right now, I hear China is so great. I've always kind of wanted to go there, but you see that, you hear that, and I'm like, well, shit, I gotta go there. I've got to go there to get stuff done. They're computer people and stuff. They're living in the future, and so like that is kind of like America tells us that's propaganda, right? Like uh, they tell us themselves that's propaganda for some reason, and but it works. But what also works is going and kidnapping people and forcing them to work. In fact, that's the cheapest solution. Think about it. What's cheaper than hiring some new workers? Getting some people to work for free for you. That's the cheapest solution every time if you can't think very well into the future. If you're concerned with the moment rather than the possible outcomes, it's definitely the best solution. Just like the advertising that you're the best, and it's gonna. Some of the people who come, obviously, you'll have to be smart enough to get to that point where you have a drive. You're like, yes, I want to be the best. I want to be around the best. That's the only way we're going to go forward in life is by surrounding ourselves with the best and becoming part of the best. Obviously, it takes a little bit, at least, to get there. It takes commitment, courage, will, and drive. And drive is very important in work, and intelligence is very important in work. And now that we've surpassed building teepees and caves, cleaning up the cave we live in of moss, and we're building rockets to go to the heavens and stuff. So you have that, but you also have another choice. You can tell the workers to create more children. And so what does Cleopatra do? Cleopatra says, create more children. Cleopatra says, invade these other people. They're kind of weak. We have more weapons than they do. let's get some new workers because I need stuff done around the palace here. And so the story continues. And this is business 101. Not every business is after slave labor, but I'm sure, yeah, I can tell you your CEO isn't worth 2 cents if he couldn't at least tell you the cheapest labor is free labor. Um, that's not cheap though. See, certain people just they have certain skill sets, and it doesn't mesh well with every other skill set. Foresight is that's a real bitch if you don't have it, because when you do things, then if you're preparing for a future, you would want to look out for possibilities, like how they've flooded this nation, with people that they don't like, and now they have a nation with a bunch of people they don't like in their nation, right? And they used to tell me that they don't know shit. And it's like I can clearly see, I've dealt with different workers. When someone comes from a place where they haven't been educated, they aren't necessarily the best workers for the job. But you don't think about that. You're just like, oh, I need a new pyramid built for me. Let's just go find these people living in caves or jungles and force them to build a pyramid. And they don't know nothing about masonry. Masonry. It's like the foundation of the world. I wonder if that ends up playing into anything going on here. Masons would also, if they were a little bit off topic, huh? Masons, the real Masons would have probably been the slaves in many areas, especially Egyptian times, where all they were doing was building pyramids and stuff, right? So anyway, so you have all that stuff, and then the children become a part of the caste that they leave out of every caste diagram I've seen. But it's such a vital role because the entire pyramid disappears if there were no children. There'd be no Cleopatra, there'd be no scribes, there'd be no military leaders, there'd be no uh, factory managers, there'd be no factory owners, there'd be no factory workers, there'd be no one to deliver the factory goods, there'd be no one to do anything if there wasn't kids below all that, because people just die off without kids, right? That's what we're told anyways. And so for some reason they disclude that. I notice they like to put out some of this stuff like it's like a good thing. It's the Life of Brian, Monty Python. If you haven't seen that, spoiler alert. It's it's got this part where this story is, it's kind of like semi about Jesus, and then it's got this part where they make fun of Jesus. I think that's like the whole movie. It's just it's 24/7 satire, so that's all it is, satire. It's English humor, so like everything's a joke in it. It's got this part where they discuss um, how much they hate Romans and stuff, because the Romans are like killing people if they say anything they don't like. So, and then they're like, it satires it. It's like, what would we have in this world if we didn't have the Romans? And like, what do the Romans do for us anyways? And so like the joke is that the Romans do everything, and you would have nothing if the Romans weren't going around enslaving everyone on the planet and forcing them to work and build stuff. So you have people like that, like in real life and stuff. Um, that does exist. I've always I avoid talking about governments and politics because where it either seems like you're going nowhere or you're not on the same side. When I meet someone in the first paragraph, they're talking to me about wars in the Middle East. Um, it's like, well, that's the end of this discussion. So, like, yeah, I'm the type person who's like, you either do something, you do it right, or you don't do it. So, once we get into this propaganda about you got to go enslave people to help them, that's like a little bit off the charts for me and stuff. But I noticed like when men on the East Coast, when I went out West Coast, I can't say for sure what I seen. I seen different Facebook pages with different people on them, but I can't tell you anything because I didn't know any of those people. So can't tell you anything about that. But I didn't really ever get many anti-government sentiments. On the East Coast, when I get anti-government sentiments, it's like Republican right-wing Nazism. Or it's like, you know, and in your first, most people's, unless you're into that stuff, most people's first thoughts when they think of fascism would be uh, the government. You can't do that without the government, right? So, on the East Coast, I never had discussions with men about that stuff because it was always leaning towards that as the answer. Even as a kid, like if my friends were political, they were literally wearing white shoelaces and running through the streets beating down people. Yeah, it's what kids do, right? Well, at least used to. I don't know what they do these days, but they used to do that stuff. And I get beat up by all sorts of people, so it doesn't really matter um, to me. It just well, it's what kids do, right? They're still coming out of their baby phase. They're still in their terrible twos. They're unlearning that. Anyway, so these are like literally, we go back to the first thing I started this video on. See, I'm trying to figure out what the fuck am I talking about? You're lost. It has nothing to do with it. 2 out of the 3, at least, at least. Okay, so the conversations I've had outside of markets the past few weeks, uh, three people have approached me and talked to me, and one of them was definitely talking about a religion that was created in Rome, and the other two were talking about my race, their race, my race, their race. So that's like, that's kind of like what it is here. I get that a lot. So I just don't. I never really had any care for governments because it's like, well, these people are talking about things and then they don't do them, and it gives them something to whine about. Anyways, that took a few minutes to figure out that like going to events, it's like, oh, this shit's pretty cool. We won't have these rallies and stuff if we don't have a problem to fix, and people won't come together to beat each other up if we don't have Donald Trump and Joe Biden, right? When everyone's getting all excited and happity hippity about it. You're getting punched in the face and you're like, yeah, I'm bleeding, guys. Get a good photo. Check this out. Let me smear the blood on me so it looks better. Look at that. I'm going to get fingerprints and I'm going to get a handprint. Look at that. It looks like someone fucking totally wiped the ground with me. Get a little Instagram beautiful photo of me smeared with blood and looks like a person's hand was bleeding. It was like, as they lay dying after they beat me up, that their last action was to like try to grab onto me and stuff, and so their handprint is like smeared down my body. I seen that shit. That's one reason why I backed out. I mean, I didn't actually get involved in this stuff. After a minute, I was like, yeah, we're probably not actually doing this, are we? So it became like investigating what's going on, which is what it really started as, anyways. Anyways, so yeah, that caste system there, and it makes me think, is that stuff still going on there? Is there still a caste system? Does that involve like all the forced interactions you have and stuff, and how they happen, or possibly their purpose? I mean, obviously, when you have a person come up to me and tell me the Somalis are taking over, like, right, like, oh, why can't Somalis take over? And they're like, well, because the caste system, right? Because Somalis are the lowest on the level, and you're not supposed to raise up through the ranks of the caste system. It's designed the way it is because that's how it works. It doesn't work any other way. If you, hey, here's an opinion from the devil. If I go tell a construction worker that he's being promoted to scribe or even CEO of the construction company, now I don't have that construction worker anymore. And you face a real dilemma there, right? Because this is like the best damn construction worker we got. And if we take him away, he's doing everyone's work. But he obviously is going to do a lot better at anything else, most likely. And we need someone to fill a better position. So what do? Possessed by the devil. I'm just telling you the arguments you get from the caste system here and stuff. Stuff that people aren't talking. But I'm wondering, like, is that stuff going on still? Is that like why when I'm a kid I get set back 4 grades, like I'm a genius, and they pass me up 4 grades, and then right after that they set me back, and it's like that's the end of my school. So at that point in time, there's no reason for me to ever go to school again. This is first grade, and in kindergarten there really wasn't a purpose for me to be there either, because all they did was set me in. That was actually the best thing they ever did, though. They set me to the side so I could read books. Right, I was set to the side. I wasn't being taught anything. Yeah. I was reading Clifford the Big Red Dog. It's not like I was given a NASA geometry book or Archimedes or even some of those witty one-liners from Plato, which would make me so smart if I could just insult people like he does without, double the comedy. You're insulting someone, and then the second joke comes when you realize that they can't figure out you're insulting them. And, just fun times. I'm real smart because I can insult you and you not know I'm insulting you. Too bad I'd be pussy putting my talent to waste if I was smart enough to insult you and you didn't know I was insulting you. Think of all the things I could have done in life if I spent time doing that. Yeah, at least it's entertaining. Although Plato's not supposed to be seen as comedy, it's supposed to be seen as stoicism. It's stoicism. A lot of it is just insulting people, so it's stoicism. I remember before the 80s, one thing they did in the caste system that I heard about is they would just go around beating up stupid people, pretty much to kill them. throughout time. Families have been known to dispose of their younger children and give everything to the older child. That comes along with the matriarch thing, which is all this is part of the caste system, right? The matriarch, patriarch type thing would be part of the caste system. Any of them, obviously, the caste system is going to include racial bindings there, because most of the time in history, when there's been slaves, it's other races. That's how you can easily identify someone if their caste system level, if their photo identification is literally their skin color. So you think about all these things, and I see the stuff going on, and it makes me wonder, like has that caste system been being played out like on a vast, a huge level on the planet? Currently, like everyone's like, oh, racism is over, but it's like, wait, wasn't it? It was over, right? But I still see it, like there seems to be things there, and then I was listening to some of the words coming out of people's mouth, like Donald Trump and stuff, and it sounds like the caste system is still there. I was watching the political stuff before that, and some people's responses to certain things, like, you know, are people getting shot and killed? And, technically, there's arguments when the government kills you that it is not about race, because only one group is talking about that. In my experience, if the government tries to kill you and you got pale skin, then your family is generally just like, yeah, well, good for them. Maybe not always, but yeah, I think always. I think it's like real close to that. Like, I had friends who might be like, oh yeah, fuck the government. But I don't know. And my dad kind of like took up for me sometimes. But there definitely seems to be a side there where some people are just like, well, you're you, and they're the government. So can you shut up now? Because I'm busy. I'm busy talking about the government and or watching them on TV, and I don't have time to talk to you about this stuff. By the way, did you see that puppet show on TV the other day where they did the yo-yo trick and they spun the yo-yo around their body and all that stuff? And you're like, oh, I thought you didn't have time. Oh, you're interrupting the commercial here. Can you please stop talking? It's hard to decipher fully what's going on here, but it does look like the caste system is there and in play. Lots of these people who own everything look like the same people, which is like, it's the caste system, right? It casts them and then cast the shutter. It's casting the mold, and then they fit into the mold, right? I think that's probably a wordplay there, where it's almost everything has everything that's legit and happening, and we can. You just need to stop talking to someone who denies that the caste system ever existed, because that's literally what the pyramid is designed. For every pyramid design comes from the caste system. The food pyramid, the pyramid on the dollar bill. That's the division and the layers, and the pyramid is the different tiers of the caste system. That's not something you can argue never happened before in the world, because and then you have wow, but how many people think that they're not talking about that directly, but how many people are like, they are, but they aren't, but they're never linking the two, right? They're never talking about caste system and the pyramid people at the same time. And usually could be because the pyramid people are the ones doing all the talking. Because it's the caste, that's part of the caste, right? They're the scribes. They're right below Donald Trump. Um, isn't that messed up? I end up living this life that's like feels 10,000% forced. And I'm using words like scribe. I do I do this because it's a martial art and flexibility training. And I was forced to learn that stuff. And I talk about scribes. Oh, man. And then I'm pretty sure I'm not dying, even though I brought back from the dead or something. Weird stuff. Anyway, so yeah, how long is that? And how long has that caste system thing been going on? So we have that written down, being back to at least at least 3,000 years ago, at least 2,200 years ago. Egypt had flying bird gods and the caste system that he brought with them. Now, I shouldn't insult that, but can we fly? Well, if you got a little wingsuit, you can definitely put on the illusion you fly if you jump off the top of a pyramid, or if you know how to hit the wind right, you could probably do that. And then there's the other stuff, but I'm going to insult it until I see someone actually do it. I'll tell you that much. Um, I don't have a wingsuit myself, and for some reason, the direction my life has been forced to has led me to a joint issue where I'm not jumping. So I'm not trying to learn to fly because for some reason, these things have brought me to a point in life where I don't jump. So, yeah. And to me, the topic is actually very interesting because how fake the world looks, and the probability that if it's that fake, you can probably have dinosaurs and transformers and um, flying people. Maybe even without a wingsuit there. Shouldn't be too hard as long as you aren't too heavy and stuff. Although some birds are pretty, they got some fat guts. Most birds have fat guts. Some of them don't, like the corvids, the ravens, and the crows. They don't have fat bodies, but almost every other bird has a real fat body, and then these little tiny baby legs. It's like they ain't walking nowhere, I'll tell you that much. They have to fly to get somewhere. And it's like, wow, but they can carry all that weight with just two wings and stuff. Two little wings. Anyways, yeah, so I'll try not to discuss the flying thing again, now that I've spoken on that. But the caste system there, how deep, like, how much does that play into my life? Obviously, I could look at my life and be like, well, you're actually really close to the top of the caste system, kind of in a way. I'm at the top of the caste system in the way a beggar who doesn't have to beg is at the top of the caste system, which is very close to, wouldn't you say that's what a Donald Trump is? A beggar who doesn't have to beg. I mean, he plays golf and probably not that good, or they would like air that constantly. So I'm going to have to say he's not good because that'd just be news. And that'd be awesome too. If you have the president and he's like this amazing golfer, I'd be like, hell yeah, fucking go win the Olympics, Trump. Um, but I've seen stuff in my life that made me like, wow. Especially when it comes to something like Trump, because one of those people was one of the Trump clones who taught me about the system and stuff. Um, and then was involved in that time where some was put in my champagne, which might involve the caste system and how it's maintained and held together. Um, so, two people who look like Trump, who weren't Trump, were involved in the caste system around me. So, it's weird that the clones often seem to be like the same person. Have they even both had the name Joe. One was taller than the other. One had links that made me think that they were a undercover cop, or they were a cop who took too many drugs in their undercover missions and it fried them. Because they definitely look like a cop in some old pics, and then they had pics of them with cops. But nowadays they're smoking a bunch of meth and stuff, and they're acting like, what the TV portrays is what happens if you smoke meth and stuff, which I always think is an act and a role, but who knows? I've definitely seen people do weird shit. It's a whole nother topic, right? The war against humans, in the drug format. Well, that's part of the caste system, right? It's like Elon Musk can do ketamine, and the soldiers can do amphetamines and steroids, but other people cannot. So, what else? The Bidens do cocaine, but other people cannot. Your mayor, Mary Berry, whatever his name was, and he's not the color of the caste system, so he gets attacked when they find he gets crack. And then Chris Christie, he looks like the caste system, but they got him on camera buying drugs, right? Something like that. But he just, when they discuss that, with Biden, didn't they say they found some white stuff in the cocaine office, in the White House? They found the white stuff in the White House. It's almost like one of those jokes set up to tell you about. I've always considered it that, though. It's like, the higher you get up, the more likely I think this person acts like they're on cocaine. And according to them, that drug will make you like a fiend who needs money and will be begging. But you can't beg for cocaine because it's too expensive. You have to really shice some things up if you're going to. You got to be a really good beggar if you're going to go that far, because you're going to need a lot, because they make it so expensive. So only Biden can afford it. And only Biden can profit off of it. So, anyways, so the caste system looks like it's still there. And then, how deep is that in society? And why does it feel like people around me were trying to, like, keep me, like my supposed family? Why does it feel like certain members of there were working with the caste system to keep the caste system in place? You can't get a direct answer from them. As you've seen in 2020, some people, you might have been deluding yourself into thinking something else of. You might have learned that there's some people out there who are part of the caste system. There might be a lot of people out there who think at the end of the day, when Cleopatra says she needs someone to scrub her toilet, then it's your duty. You go down that pyramid, everyone in that pyramid will be involved in the order issue. You have the creator of the order, you have the one who writes the order down, you have the one who copies the order, you have the one who delivers the order, you have the one who performs the order, and you might possibly have the people who perform the order are not available and busy, and so they have to recruit and create a whole new level of the caste system in order to get the order done. So, we've seen that. We've seen lots of this stuff before, but some of this stuff happened in my life. It makes me wonder about that. If like people's families are not creating the caste system for their own families because they're one higher tier. Like everyone in the tier system knows that they have their position, or else they have a lower position. And if we take away the children on the bottom that I have to add to the caste system, but it's clearly there. If we take away the children, who would be the person you would be demoted to if you're the lowest on the caste system? If your job is just to go spread the message that Cleopatra needs someone to have cleaner toilet, what happens? Where do you get demoted if that's your job? Well, you get demoted below surface level, right? Isn't that what they tell you? It's below, you're going to go to hell. You're going to be buried 6 feet under the sand. So that's weird how the caste system, even though it's not listed, the people who are below the slaves, lowest workers, these days there's no slaves, there's only workers. Blue collar, they're called. It's so fancy because blue's a regal color. It's the color of, isn't real? It's, it's courageous and it's beautiful. You see the blue behind me? It's beautiful, right? You got some blue right here. It's a beautiful color. It's almost got a blue collar around my bicep. It's beautiful, isn't it? So it sounds a lot better than saying, well, you're a slave. Because that word got old. That some people got tired of being called that. People still don't like being called that, even though no one is officially called that anymore. So it shouldn't hurt you unless unless maybe you feel like there's some sort of truth to it, and it's poking at your feelings that you've been repressing yourself, that you've been enslaving yourself with by allowing those feelings to go unattended. So it's weird that, see, wow, the things. Trying to figure out, like, oh, can I make up something stupid and, as a joke to lighten the subject? Yeah, well, what happens when you go below the lowest level of the caste? You're dead. You're under the pyramid now. You are the dirt. You literally become the dirt that the pyramid is built upon. Well, they love that too, don't they? They love building temples on top of the people they've just killed. It buries the evidence. And it also sends a message. And it, it should be obvious what those messages could be. Right? Maybe there are people out there who don't deal with things and never had to deal with war type battles, conflicts, stuff like that. But a lot of times, a battle, a conflict, probably maybe a one in 3 options will be you become lower than the pyramid. Possibility could happen to anyone. You could just get in a fist fight, and you could put someone below the pyramid, or they could put you with just one punch, and you're just fighting over your GI Joe soldiers or something, or your Barbie doll. Yeah, that seems to be the lowest level there. And, even if we add that other layer, maybe that's why we can't see it because kids are the dirt, right? And then when we deal with that caste system and we add that other layer that's not spoken of, then, I mean, what else? A child generally is just to shut up and not be seen or heard, and they're treated like second class citizens unless they're not second class citizens, unless they're not citizens or being treated against the citizens. You know what I'm saying? In the comparison level of the tiers of the pyramid of the caste system. So generally, they would get, they're just nothing. That's why they don't get thrown in the caste system because it's considered nothing. They're they're not even mentionable. But it's a huge part of it because that's unless you go get people from other nations and have them come work for you, then they're going to be uh, the next people raising up. They're going to grow up and then become uh, a, a higher level on that system. I think it might actually reflect it more by leaving it out. Maybe just put in some blank outlines as you got the pyramid on the sun, and then below here you just put some of those dotted lines, blank outlines, maybe Casper the Ghost or something, and write in parentheses kids, children, because all those things are in place, right? When you gotta get a new worker and you ran out of workers, and everyone knows that, right? Russia did that recently. They started telling people they're going to give them tax credits if they have children because they need more children for war, and all these other groups who are involved and stuff like that. It's a lot of what they talk about, right? That's what Elon Musk platform talked about for a while. That's what the website before X talked about a lot. Um, like find a woman right away and have some kids. And they aren't telling you that because they love you and they know you're going to love the feeling of a woman kissing you and hugging you. Um, Most people aren't even interested in that. I've had people who didn't want physical contact at all, so they're not even. No one's thinking about. Not no one, but many people aren't thinking about that stuff, right? I Anyway, so yeah, the caste system and how's that being implemented there? Um, who's all doing it? Why are they leaving out children of the caste system? All those whatever you filter down from the top down, it always has a possibility of ending. We don't have enough workers to fulfill this task, and so in order to create more workers, we only have really two options: to obtain some more or to create some more. So to me, it would seem like it's a big thing. And we already have like the lowest class is probably already people who have been obtained. So the whole lower thing would be creating more. And then, that's like that would be the entire purpose of that caste is they're just supposed to and learn how to work and uh, grow up so they can grow up to whatever level on the pyramid that they're going to be allocated to, permitted to go to. So Makes me wonder if that might have something to do. I mean, I was weird because on my end, we're like, you're like this close to being like, well, you could be the next Cleopatra, but the whole lineup thing, and they use that too. Like that's a lot of conversation I get is people trying to convince me of something like that. Sometimes these days, I don't remember having that conversation before in the past. Um, so it makes me wonder if that's just not part of a plan there to, convince people in the lower caste that they're going to get somewhere someday, which obviously is a huge part of the caste system. If you don't dangle a carrot in front of the donkey won't attempt to move necessarily, right? Well, how do you get cows to move? But seriously, what is it they do? They use a cattle prod, right? So I'm not sure how else you do it. I know you go up to them and you're like, time to move, cow, screaming in its face, and it just like, it doesn't care at all. It doesn't do anything, it just chews its cud. And you bop it in the head or something, it doesn't do anything. You gotta get that cattle prod out to get them to move and stuff. But where are you moving the cattle to? You know what I'm saying? Like you hit it with the cattle prod. Are you is it going to become a worker? Is it going to become a scribe? So we already have patterns here of within of the caste system being developed, and we have the caste system where it's at the lowest levels. A lot of it is just cattle prodding to get the cattle to move to the wherever, to the bed, because it's got to go to the bed. It's got to go eat the grass. And eventually it's going to get big from all that hard work it's doing. And then you prod it and it goes into the meat grinder so you can eat it. And now, cows don't seem to talk very much, but I wonder if any of them like think, we're moving up the pyramid here. We're going places. He got the cattle prod. They told me if I chew my cud, eat the grass, and go eat when I'm told to, and go to sleep when I'm told to, then we're gonna move up the layers here. I wonder if you told a cow that, if it would help, instead of hitting it with the cattle prod, you could just be like, I like you, cow. You're very delicious, especially with some cheese and some orange cheese and some mustard and pickles and ketchup. Nice sesame bun. I like you, cow. But what I gotta get you to do today is I don't want to hit you with the cattle prod because I like you. So we're gonna move you. We're gonna move you up the system here soon. Wow. Wow. See, I'm like, wow. Wow. This is like a me thing for real. Like the stories these people are pushing are about like sacrificing humans to push stories and get agendas done. And I look a lot like the person in the human sacrifice stories. Wow. Wow. You see when have I wow. I've tried to fry my brain with inhalants. You ever seen how those paint huffers act on TV when they're acting that way? When the people who already act that way without ever huffed paint once are on TV acting like the people to blame it on paint so they can get an extra 10-cent profit off every paint can sale, making it illegal to sell children. So the scribes and Cleopatra can get an additional 10 cents off every paint can sale. And they're probably already getting like 40 cents off every paint can sale already, but got to have a new way to get that extra 10 cents and stuff. And they do that by laundering the money through taxes. And then the money's washed clean. So it's their money. There's no sign at all that they've committed mass amounts of crimes and fraud in order to obtain their golden palaces and pyramids. And there are no more slaves. Slavery's over. We already know that. No one's a slave anymore. So what's the relevance of this conversation if we haven't even... There's no such thing as slaves. Obviously, there can't be a caste system, right? Because the word slave is not in use these days. And without the word slave, the pyramid on the dollar bill would it's just fancy art, African art, right? It's just fancy African art on the American dollar bill that means absolutely nothing to no one. You know, like the dollar bill is like this, it's just like a slot, man. And they take 10 million random pictures from their computer. They just take the whole picture folder and they just print them all out. It's like a little kid is just played with a printing press or something, right? It's definitely not like only 4 things on the dollar bill. Well, technically, there's like 25 things on it, but there's like 2 symbols lettered with symbols themselves. There's the vulture, the American eagle, the carrion that eats dead people, dead things. A giant eagle would eat dead people. An eagle would eat dead people too. If it finds them, it'll definitely eat them. I'm pretty sure on that one. That's the eagle moving up the pyramid there on the caste system. Now it's eating humans. You were eating rats yesterday. You were eating deer and tigers yesterday. Now you're eating human cuisine. Chef cuisine. Oh man, it's messed up. Well, that sucks. Well, the good day is over because I just spent all my time talking about that. And it cycles right back to realizing that someone who's being pushed with a cattle prod is being set up to be a human sacrifice. And yeah, we didn't even mean to end up talking about that stuff. That's what it is, right? Is that not the story? I suppose these other times I've died have not been enough for the story. Hopefully, right? Hopefully all these other times I've been attacked and they've tried to kill me are enough for the story, because, wow, I might be wrong on this one thing. I might be wrong that next time that happens, that's the end of the story. We never even got to enjoy it. We just had to sit here being fucking paranoid and nervous the whole fucking time that they were up to something no good. And the likelihood that it was going to keep happening. Well, the knowing it was going to keep happening as it did. Fucking. Anyway, so, it's the caste system must mean something, and the things around me must mean something, right? So to me, it looks like they're trying to convince me I'm going to make it to the top of the caste system, but all their words, every other word they talk about, is about having a human sacrifice. to elevate themselves to higher statuses. They can elevate themselves to God's status if they sacrifice a person as Jesus, right? And they can roll out the clone if they find a living person that they can do that with, and then they can take over from there. They already showed me there was someone similar to me, but I already know most of these people I met have clones because I've met them and their clones. One person, Donald Trump, he has at least two other clones. And I want to say there's a fourth. I seen a fourth the other day. Um, it's really hard for me not to see those people, and not know who they are when I lived with one for like a year or two. Hmm. They tried to get me to hang out with Donald Trump, but by that time I was like, yeah, you know what, that would look really bad on my record. What in it if I'm hanging out with the president of of some sort of terrorist organization? Fucking, some days people might look at that and be like, no, he hung out with Al Qaeda and shit. Like, we can't trust him. I was trying to be a lot. I thought the world might have had something to offer back then besides this, but um, so I was like playing along for a couple of years, even though I knew I was watching like the signs, and I was like, oh, this is fake and set up, huh? And then they released the music talking about it being fake and set up, and and then there's people making that music go and invade the Capitol in a TV show for January the 6th. And after their people slash my tires the night before to discuss it with me about what they should do next. Yeah, so my best assumption here is the caste system is there, and Cleopatra is killing anyone who is not of her bloodline attempting to move up the pyramid. And it'll start as cattle prodding and drugging, right? They drug people nowadays uh, because it's the new word. They simply change the word, and this is all they do is change a word, and now it's something new. That's why they had to create 100 different religions and then 20,000 offshoots, because every time they corner you, and they demand your soul or they're going to torture you, they they bring that up, and you're like, well, I don't like being raped by men, so I'd stop going to the church because that was weird. And they're like, what? Not every church does that, though, right? Not every church has been caught doing that, right? And, because there's one word different. I was trying to tell the person the other day, they're like, this is the only religion of peace. It's the one true religion of peace. And I was like, well, Buddhism. I was like, oh, that's pretty peaceful, bro. Those people tell their people to sit down and do nothing. They don't even threaten to kill them, I don't think. It probably does, considering it's all like AI slot cloned. But as far as I know, on the outside, those people don't even threaten to kill their people. They just say they better sit down and do nothing their entire lives, like I am right now, Buddha style. And my job here is to sit down and do nothing, and then one day they well, gather a person who looks like me to, because looks like they're trying to gather everyone who looks like me to play a role for them. And they got their huge TV show they need to kick off to have a scapegoat, kind of like how Jeffrey Epstein's been talked about for what, 6 years now. And they just keep talking about it. And 6 years, and they do nothing. It's a distraction. Well, there are people who have been running free with their 20,000 religions legalizing child, actual infant, toddler, embryo, fetus rape. Fetus rape, pretty much. Uh, oh no. Oh no. There is something we don't know they're doing yet that they can do to become more sick of people. And I just spoke the words. And they couldn't come up with the idea on their own. Oh no. Anyways, sounds not like I would be surprised if it happened. So, yeah, just, wow. Wow, that really sucks that this conversation ended like that. Because I know it doesn't suck for you. No one cares about me like my mom, who I told every time. I've been telling for years I'm killing myself. I'm going to bleed out and take poisons every time she fucks with me. And she just ignores it and goes past it. And then I show her videos of it, and she just ignores it and goes past it. And she just keeps doing it, kind of like she's a robot there to force people into some sort of anti-human religion or something that they need scapegoats for, something like that. I mean, something real close to that shit happening. Huh? There definitely is the part where you tell people, hey, if you keep talking to me, I'm going to kill myself. And then you start trying to kill yourself, and they just keep talking. And you're like, yeah, hey, like, I know you love me because you just said it. But next time you talk to me, but I told you last time, I'm going to kill myself if you talk to me again. And then so you try to kill yourself again, and they're just like, can you stop that? I'm trying to talk here. Yeah, I'm gonna go to hell and die for that. I'm gonna have my friends come and try to poison you, like they did me when I had sex with them and I got an STD from it. Well, at least we got some funny shit, right? There's some fucking amusing ass shit there, though. The whole person's life was crumbled by their government worship. Fucking. That's not the only time that's happened in world history where people's government worship led to their crumbling. Um, right now, people got a lot of questions, but they should be, people have one question. They're like, why is this stuff happening? And I was like, well, I don't know. Why are you doing it? Why are you doing the stuff you do? I don't know. I don't care. I'm not a psychologist, and I don't like psychology. I don't like doctors. I'm also on um, a tribute to God, a vow of silence. So um, I must carry out, or else I must kill myself every time I break it. So I'm also not supposed to be talking about that stuff. Fucking. Yeah, you tell that person that too, and they're like the person who like beats religion into you. They don't care about God. They don't believe in the gods they're inventing. They're inventing that shit to manipulate people and stuff. Like the other dude the other day came up to me talking to me about that stuff, and he's just ignoring. He's telling me the words he wants to say. Don't work, don't do anything, because that's what their people have been doing, right? Drugging me when I'm a kid, taking me out of school. Um, they magically started drugging me when I started winning awards from the president, and I can't help but think that that was like a red flag, like somewhere in the nation. I mean, I literally got the award from the president, right? So somewhere in the nation, there was some information the president obtained that made them think that they should try to kill me with drugs and fry my brain. I was like, oh, well, I wonder who that could have been, because it was literally an award from the president. Huh. Oh, I don't know. Anyways, so, yeah, I can't help but think that, well, that dude, he was just like talking over me, and he was just talking, and And for 30 minutes, the entire point was I have to do everything he says, or else when I die, they're going to torture me more. So, but he took 30 minutes to say that because he was scared to come out and say that. And he has to dance around that. He made it illegal for people to say things like that. And that way people can't go around saying, hey, you know what, people torturing people should be killed, because then that would be detrimental to their system of operation. And you gotta it's the Orwellian doublespeak from the year 4000 BCE, and brought to you by Cleopatra. Doublespeak. What's the earliest form of doublespeak we have? We have that person is a half bird. What does that mean? It means they're the greatest person on earth, right? And they can fly. No. What it really means is they have the tiniest brain on earth. And they probably can't spell the word fly. But doublespeak tells us that this person was a bird and it flew. And so you should worship it and give it all your money. But the reality of the doublespeak might be a little bit different. That this person was so stupid that they thought other people would think it's an actual fucking bird if they put a bird mask on their head and told people that they're a bird. That's what it sounds like to me. It's like the caste system. It's not like we're organizing it's not like Hitler organizing all his brown hair, brown eye Nazi members, in different sets of stuff, where brown hair, brown eyes are the leaders, and then the cabinet, and then the military is the leader, is the cabinets and the historians and the military, and then the fifth layer down, you've got blonde hair, blue eye people who are just the soldiers in the war, right? Definitely nothing like that. That's some doublespeak too, isn't it? There, where does that qualify as doublespeak? Where you're like, I am a blonde hair, blue eye supremacist, and we're gonna kill all the non-blonde hair, blue eye people because we're better than them. But then you got brown hair and brown eyes. And then you kill all the blonde hair, blue eye people instead. It sounds like doublespeak, don't it? It's real close to it. Yeah, I'd say so. Oh yeah, I'm not like we're gonna kill all these other people but we are those people. That's real. That's a real Egyptian doublespeak term, is telling, Cleopatra's people go around the planet telling people that they were slaves, right? Cleopatra's people were slaves who built pyramids for some unknown Pharisee who wasn't called Cleopatra, right? And wow. So yeah, doublespeak goes back real far, doesn't it? Doublespeak goes back to the invention of writing, the earliest written forms we have. People talking about hope, love, and peace, and and literally the only people who have erased entire cities off the fucking map recently. Yeah, well, hey, as fake and set up as all this looks, I wonder if there's going to be a accumulation of events where all this stuff ends up meaning something, or if we've just been forced to learn all this and do all this stuff for absolutely no frickin' reason, and we're just here to waste our time reading books. And all we do is erase our memories to come to places like this so we can play Pong and read Clifford the Big Red Dog again, and it's feel new and interesting. I wonder. I wonder. Pretty much every word they say is a lie. So that's how you know when someone's lying is they're talking. So that's it seems to be the 2020 proved that you're going to be manipulated, and if someone else doesn't agree with you, that's the highest probability. It's because they're trying to get into the conversation with you while you're trying to do something else. And so, it's like my male friend circles. If they didn't say certain things, they wouldn't be allowed around me. Same with females, right? If they didn't say they loved you, then they couldn't be your friend, right? They couldn't be your girlfriend or wife unless you have an arrangement made where they're just going to produce babies, be a baby factory, and you're going to conquer the world that way, or at least you're going to conquer your own caste level and improve your own conditions. Yeah. I wonder how much of that is accurate, considering it seems to be real. They're real high up there, right? Like you've got the Christians coming into my life telling me I have to be a slave on the lowest class, and my work here don't matter. So don't worry about the things a genius like me could do, like anything, and do absolutely nothing. Like close to what they do, but their job, they told me they don't do anything while they're spending 30 minutes talking to me and stuff. Wow, and that person, the rat people brought around, Geppetto brought around, was like, wow, is this like a Nazi? Like they're all built and stocky, the illiterate type of Nazis, you know what I'm saying? Not like the ones from the 40s who uh, were all like high class and shit like that. Fucking, you can generally tell. That's weird. I rarely see Bible people who are all built and jacked and stuff. I know a couple, but there's a certain look. It's like it's given certain people to do certain characteristics, certain traits. I know the caste system is designed that way, right? Like where that would automatically do that. But when you have the clones, you have the same people doing the same thing because they're clones. Most likely, not because for centuries their families did the same thing as the other family. So they ended up both being a Major League Baseball pitcher. Yeah, I suppose the whole point here then is for me to figure out at this point the cattle prod to the lowest level of the caste system. We have more evidence that that's what you do is you prod the cattle into the direction you want them to go. And then, of course, don't do any work while you're on the planet above slave class because that's not your caste system. And then that leads to not being, that leads to understanding why one group of people own the world and have several tiers who are their servants below them working to protect that. That's what that actually leads to. I think the robots want me to, they have a different dialogue telling me it means I'm supposed to worship them and bullshit that comes out of their mouth. Fucking amazing. This is amazing. I love this trash. Fucking, it gives us something to do, right? We're bored. I'm sure we're bored in the real world. We're like, oh, this is so great. I got a beautiful girl and a beautiful life. She's intelligent. I want to go to Earth and just fucking meet up with some bunch of crackheads. I'm tired of you looking so hot over there and being so smart. Wow. It feels like a mirror reflection of me saying what these other people must have been thinking the whole time. But they do that thing where they have one goal. We're going to torture you if you don't fucking do what we say. And then I spend 30 minutes of saying every word around that in order to get your brain to look at that. Like, yeah, there's, yeah, we're not doing that. And they were like, oh no, that's not what I said. It's like, no, buddy, it's called English. Learn it, buddy. It's called a summary. A summary. It's weird. One of the first terrorists sent in my life with their system was called Dummery. That was literally his name. It's making a joke of this terrorist. His name's Mr. Dummery. Can you imagine that? My first government re-education class, the teacher was Mr. Dummery. I'm not making it up. I'm telling you, it's making a joke of these fools and shit. It's creating them so they make a joke of themselves. And then it's labeling them something like Mr. Stupid or Mr. Dipstick. And just like the whole path here is just lined up with all these little fancy jokes it makes about it. And it's like, hey, this is the only thing that really makes me think that like the cattle prod and human sacrifice is going to turn really bad for them if they roll it out. It's the only hope in the world I have, because nothing else points to it except for everything they're not saying, and everything like their names is just that they don't change. It's like, who has the name Dummery and doesn't work a job when they're 10 years old to get $80 to go to the courts and change it? They don't let you change your name either. They have to agree to it too. Mr. Dummery has to agree that you can change your name to something. Just like my DNR request over here, do not resuscitate request on the wall. I have to have Mr. Dummery's permission to not be put on life support and not be resurrected through the use of devil technology. I, just as Mr. Dummery and his people, have created books telling me I must stay alive. The cattle must stay alive. Cleopatra, when they came back, they were like, yeah, you know what? We're trying to get people to clean your toilets. But some of those people, they said, no, we're not going to do it. Now, I went to kill them, and they killed themselves first. And so Cleopatra was like, so now we got no one to clean my toilet because they're killing themselves. What are we going to do? And maybe Cleopatra's always stupid. The people at the top are always brain dead, because you got to realize in the story here, they have centuries of their people. Look at the Rothschild. They look at the Down syndrome. Where do you think they come from? They look like that because that's what's inside their brain. There's nothing in there. It looks stupid. It is stupid. And they've been sitting around for what? Thousands of years doing nothing. The one Trump I know, like for some reason, he told me, I don't really work my job. I just appear to. And I outsource it to a different nation, actually. You didn't have to tell me that, but it sets the stage for me understanding that if you get in a battle with one of these people, if you lose a battle against them, it's not because of intelligence. It's because the robot's being set the fuck up to be able to attack you and get away with it. Oops, didn't mean that. Um, but they don't have the brain power. That's why you can't play golf, bro. You literally hit a ball with a stick. We haven't heard anything about how great he is at hitting a ball with a stick. I mean, I remember playing golf when I'm a baby, and he was like, we at least won sometimes, right? Maybe not every round or something, but we did it sometimes because a baby can, it's so easy, a baby can do it. But the president can't do it because his people have been sitting around at the top of the pyramid for centuries, snacking on potato chips and doing nothing else. So they aren't trained. The one who doesn't do anything told me he went to school, but it made me realize, like, well, what is school? School's that place where I go and I get all A pluses on everything, and I win awards from the president, and I get past that 4 grades, and then they fucking shelf me and try to fry me with drugs. So that's what they do to me. So what do you think they would do to themselves if they fail every grade and they get piss poor grades? They just make up the diploma. They can just make up the grade. Isn't that what they do with their pyramid currency, their pyramid dollars, the pyramid buck? That's the official name of the U.S. dollar. We're gonna rename it. Once I get in control, we're gonna rename it to the pyramid buck because it should put a light on in people's heads that Adolf Hitler's blonde-haired, blue-eyed servants wouldn't be putting African pyramids on their dollar bills. So there's something up with that. There's something up with this is what the biggest nation in history to enslave Africans since Egypt was invaded and taken over thousands of years ago. This is the biggest to do. But they worship Africa for some reason. Maybe they worship the pyramid because the pyramid symbolizes that they're global colonizers who have been going around enslaving the planet, and that's the root of their slavery and where they come from and the source of their control, along with the AI on top of it, which would explain other things like how they seem to be non-humans and have clones. So, yeah. So there we go. We're gonna end this is it. Pretty much until you see that pyramid removed from the dollar, unless the entire government ends up being like Somalians and stuff, it doesn't mean anything. And sure, they'll pull the plug and do something like that, but so they can escape during those times. They do that all the time, right? Just like they aren't the Romans and they aren't the Egyptians. Well, it's like, well, if you aren't, then why are you using their symbols? Why don't we have the Chinese flag? Well, don't encourage them to dig deeper into who might have first invaded Africa. Fucking, because it'd still be them supporting themselves. Kanye West seems to think there's some possibility to that. And again, if I hear about it, there might be some weight to that. I've heard about that. I've heard all that stuff. But it's weird. I hear that, I hear that the blacks are the real Africans argument. They're the real Jews and the real slaves of Africa. Imagine that. Who could have guessed? I never really wasted time on it, but I get to hear that, right? I haven't heard anything about the Eskimos being the real Chinese. Well, wait a minute. Yeah, actually, I have because they're right beside China. But a bad example, right? I haven't heard anything about the Greenlanders being the real Chinese. Not yet. You don't hear all that other nonsense you can just make up that no one's ever said. It doesn't always end up sounding like it's something you've heard before for some reason. Anyway, so yeah, let's end that there. Amazing. What I do is as long as any of this stuff still exists, I realize it's all a scam. Uh, why is the world's richest man an African? Who runs a nation that has an African pyramid on their currency, but they both it might be safe to say they both hate Africans. Um, and Why do they hate? I don't think they actually hate Romans, do they? Oh yeah, the person talking to me the other day tried to tell me about that. This is the first time I've ever heard another human talk about the Romans and the Italians in a bad light. And they're like, the Romans used to kill their babies. You can't do that. And I think he was telling me that because his people are the ones setting up, his pale skinned people are the ones setting up our relationships and forcing us to date who they want. You know, like in my case, if they set me back in school, one thing they would do is continually send me sterile females or set me up with people they hate. And so it comes as no surprise that all their people already are used up whores who have children with their people, and their people don't want to take care of their own children. So then they have to find another man to take care of their children while they go get more women and children, like Elon Musk does and Donald Trump does. Seems to be being pretty accurate with what's going on here. And all I'm doing is debating fucking some sort of robot dialogue. And it's trying to convince me that the sky doesn't exist. But I must say it exists or else they're going to torture me. Yeah, it's some weird shit. But it just goes on and on, right? Just on and on and on and on. You can see they're still talking about Epstein 6 years later. This is I give humans credit. This is the first time they've ever been able to talk about anything that wasn't a standard greeting like hello type conversation or a religion or organization that profits a lot. Um, this is the first time I've seen some sort of political discussion go further than three months or something. The first time they just move on. Each time something comes up, they just move right past it. It took 60 years to legalize marijuana, legalize the government getting their cut from marijuana sales and getting to control the sales. It took 60 years for that. And then there's no discussion of well, what about the people who made that illegal and profited off it and killed a bunch of people and killed and enslaved hundreds of billions in order to do that. Um, there's no discussion of that. We're still on what's the next thing that is it opiates? Is it it'll be what there's tons of opiates, but there'll be like what one opiate maybe. Is that what's next, or is there something else I'm missing out there? They've been pushing acid for like 100 years. They'll probably they did legalize mushrooms. You see what I'm saying? I can't even say anything stupid. They did legalize mushrooms. Fucking, they've been talking about pushing acid for like 100 years. And my best guess is because it fries people's brains that they want to promote that over the other stuff. I see testosterone got legalized, but it's not like that was ever a issue, right? At first it was because only Hitler does that, but none of the people in World War II were on steroids. You can tell by looking at their pictures. So he didn't do that. I'm going to go stare at my dollar for a while. See what we can't figure out. I think we got that figured out, right? There's a six-sided star on there, which is just two pyramids, right? And then it tells you that they are the Pharisees and Sadducees. So, but then they tell you they were the slaves in the next book they wrote. They were slaves to themselves. So you got the pyramid and the dual pyramid over there above the carrion. Yeah, I've already been through that. And then supposedly there's, other people have been through that, right? That's how I got notification of some of it. I was born knowing the pyramid stuff, though. Like, I don't know how. The first time I seen that, I was like, man, that's some evil fucking technology. Like, can you imagine someone telling you a pyramid is some evil fucking computer? Anytime, yet alone in 1984 when no one really knew what a computer was. My dad worked at a data processing center and I liked computers. But no one else wanted people to touch that stuff. Some other kids were into some of it, but not really. I was like 16 when I met a man into another boy into computers. I was like 14, 15 when I met him. That was the first one I met into computers. But wow, that's so weird. See, I could just look at that and it sends. It's like your back is getting hacked up with an axe. And it's weird because, the CPU in the spine on me, it's a little fucked up. It's like it has access to that shit to cripple you and maim you to make you part of its terror system, to make you its human sacrifice. So, as with Jeffrey Epstein, they're all getting off the hook. Even if they went after 10 people in the government, the planet is filled with these people, and they're all getting off the hook. Well, they have their scapegoat, their invisible goat. We don't even have proof he exists, to be honest. Yeah, no one has any proof he exists, even. That's one thing you might notice if you've ever traveled a lot. Man, the people at the top. Wow. I don't know if I've ever met any of them, man. Trump was locked away behind security gates. You couldn't get within a quarter of a mile of the building he was in. At the Republican event. So all those times you see Trump and his supporters and shit. Yeah. How come when I went to the RNC, they had security gates and normal people who weren't rich and paid to go there? How come they couldn't go there, but supposedly every other? How come they were the only ones who got to go, but supposedly every other time they're on TV, those are real normal 9-to-5 slobs, not paid rich people or anything? Huh. It always links back to the summary of what's going on is most likely these are alien robots who landed thousands of years ago and began enslaving the planet then, decimating whatever's living on the planet, replacing them. That's the summary of what I see from my end and the summary of what they say in their stories and their actions. Put those three things together. Like a pyramid, you put those three sides together and you have the pyramid.